There is a quiet power in humility, one that strips away the ego without confrontation or spectacle. In our modern world, noise is celebrated. Grand declarations, public displays, and ceaseless self-promotion. Ego thrives in these spaces, feeding on validation and applause. Yet the strategy I propose requires none of these things. It is rooted in simplicity, in discipline, and above all, in silence. The ego, that insatiable voice within, seeks recognition, comparison, and control. It whispers, "You deserve more." They owe you respect, and "you are better." It thrives on the external, drawing strength from the opinions of others and the fleeting victories of the moment. The ego is never satisfied. It constantly hungers for more. But the quiet strategy to disarm it does not involve confrontation or suppression. It involves the deliberate practice of turning inward. To begin, consider this. Most battles with the ego are not won through force, but through understanding. To dismantle the ego, you must first observe it. Listen to its demands without reacting. When someone insults you, the ego leaps to defend itself. When someone outshines you, the ego stirs with envy. In these moments, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, why does this matter to me? Often, the ego's demands crumble under the weight of honest reflection. Silence is a weapon. Not the silence of indifference, but the silence of strength. When others boast, remain quiet. When provoked, do not respond. The ego thrives in arguments and displays of dominance, but it withers in the absence of attention. This is not a strategy of weakness, it is one of profound control. By refusing to engage, you assert mastery over yourself, which is the only mastery that truly matters. Another facet of this strategy is the deliberate embrace of humility. Humility is not self-deprecation or the denial of your worth. It is the recognition that you are a small part of a much greater whole. The stars do not shine brighter because you exist. The tides do not shift for your ambitions. This perspective is not meant to diminish you, but to free you. When you understand that you are neither more nor less significant than anyone else, the ego loses its foundation. It can no longer demand special treatment or recognition. Ego often clings to achievements and possessions, using them as proof of superiority. But possessions can be lost and achievements fade with time. The quiet strategy acknowledges this impermanence. It teaches you to detach from the things the ego holds most dear. Celebrate your victories, yes, but do not let them define you. Take pride in your work, but do not tie your identity to it. This detachment is not coldness, it is freedom. Without the weight of attachment, the ego has nothing to cling to. You may also find power in acts of service. When you focus on helping others without expecting recognition, the ego is sidelined. It does not know how to function in the absence of personal gain. Service shifts your perspective outward, away from the endless loop of self-concern. It teaches you that fulfillment is not found in the applause of others, but in the quiet knowledge that you have done good. This strategy requires discipline. Ego is persistent. It will test your resolve with moments of frustration, doubt, and pride. There will be times when you want to shout your accomplishments from the rooftops or retaliate against an insult. In these moments, return to the breath. Remind yourself that ego's victories are hollow. True strength lies in restraint. When others posture, let them. When others compete, step aside. This does not mean you lack ambition or drive. It means your ambition is directed inward. It is not about being better than others, but about being better than you were yesterday. This quiet internal ambition terrifies the ego because it cannot draw its strength from comparison. Do not confuse this strategy with passivity. It is not about letting others walk over you or accepting injustice. It is about choosing your battles wisely. Not every insult requires a rebuttal. Not every slight needs correction. Save your energy for what truly matters. In doing so, you conserve your peace and protect your dignity. The quiet strategy that strips away the ego is not a single act, but a way of life. It is a series of small, deliberate choices, choosing silence over noise, humility over pride, service over self-interest. It is not easy. The ego will resist, for it fears its own extinction. But with time and practice, you will find that the ego's grip weakens. You will see the world more clearly, unclouded by the distortions of pride and insecurity. And in that clarity, you will discover a profound freedom. The freedom that comes from stripping away the ego is unlike anything else. It is a quiet liberation, an unshackling of the mind from the relentless pursuit of approval, dominance, and validation. When you are no longer ruled by ego, you are free to experience life as it is, not as it should be according to some illusory standard. You begin to appreciate the simplicity of existence itself, a sunrise, the laughter of a friend, the stillness of a moment. These things become enough because the ego, which constantly craves more, is no longer dictating the terms of your happiness. But this path requires vigilance. Ego is not something you conquer once. It is a shadow that follows you, waiting for moments of weakness. It creeps in subtly through a small victory, a compliment, or even a perceived slight. You might find yourself relishing in the praise or burning with resentment at a minor insult. These are the moments that test your discipline. When they arise, remind yourself that this is not who I am. This is not what matters. By doing so, you reclaim control and the ego loses its power. The ego loves to dwell on the past and obsess over the future. It revisits old wounds, replaying scenarios where you were wronged, imagining clever retorts that were never spoken. It also projects into the future, building castles of ambition, glory, and status. But neither the past nor the future is real. They are constructs of the mind. The present moment is all there is, and the ego cannot exist in the present. To silence it, anchor yourself in the now. Pay attention to your breath, the sensations in your body, the sounds around you. In this state of presence, the ego has no foothold. Another powerful tool in this strategy is self-awareness. To strip away the ego, you must become deeply familiar with its tactics. Notice how it reacts to success. Does it swell with pride? Does it start comparing your achievement to others? Notice how it reacts to failure. Does it spiral into self-pity or lash out in anger? Observe these reactions without judgment, as if you were watching a play unfold. By observing the ego, you create distance from it. You begin to see it for what it is, a construct of the mind, not your true self. Consider the power of gratitude in dismantling the ego. The ego thrives on a sense of entitlement, believing you deserve more, that life owes you something. Gratitude flips this narrative. When you practice gratitude, you focus on what you have, not what you lack. You see the abundance in your life, no matter how small. This practice humbles the ego and grounds you in reality. Gratitude is not about ignoring challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It is about acknowledging the good amidst the struggles and understanding that much of what you have is not owed to you, but is a gift. Let us also address the role of failure and criticism. The ego fears these things deeply because they threaten its carefully constructed image. But failure and criticism are some of life's greatest teachers if you approach them with humility. When you fail, the ego wants to either wallow in self-pity or deflect blame onto others. Resist this urge. Instead, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? View failure as an opportunity for growth, not a reflection of your worth. Similarly, when faced with criticism, listen with an open mind. There may be truth in it, even if it stings. By embracing failure and criticism, you rob the ego of its fear and turn these experiences into tools for self-improvement. Service to others is another crucial element in this quiet strategy. The ego is self-centered. It thrives on putting its own needs and desires above all else. But when you serve others, you shift the focus outward. Acts of kindness, done without expectation of recognition or reward, weaken the ego's grip. Whether it's helping a stranger, supporting a friend, or contributing to a cause, these acts remind you that you are part of something greater than yourself. They cultivate a sense of connection and purpose that the ego cannot replicate. It is also important to cultivate a sense of equanimity. Life is full of ups and downs, successes and setbacks. The ego rides these waves, exulting in the highs and despairing in the lows. Equanimity, on the other hand, is the ability to remain steady regardless of external circumstances. It does not mean you are indifferent to joy or immune to pain. It means you do not let these experiences define you. When you achieve something great, accept it with grace, but do not let it inflate your sense of self. When you face adversity, endure it with dignity, but do not let it crush your spirit. Equanimity is the antidote to the ego's roller coaster of emotions. The quiet strategy is not about rejecting ambition or denying your potential. It is about channeling these forces inward. Instead of striving to be better than others, strive to be better than you were yesterday. Instead of seeking external validation, seek internal alignment. Ask yourself, am I living according to my values? Am I pursuing what truly matters to me? Or am I chasing what will impress others? These questions guide you away from the ego's distractions and toward a life of authenticity. This strategy is about liberation. The ego is a prison, chaining you to the opinions of others, the pursuit of status, and the fear of failure. By stripping it away, you free yourself to live fully and authentically. You become unshakable, not because you are invulnerable, but because you are grounded in something deeper than the ego's fleeting desires. This freedom is quiet, subtle, and profoundly transformative. It does not announce itself with fanfare. It reveals itself in the stillness of a mind at peace. When you embrace this quiet strategy and truly begin to dismantle the ego, you realize something profound. Much of what you thought you needed, you never truly did. The constant striving, the relentless pursuit of approval, the need to be right, these were never sources of fulfillment. They were illusions, distractions pulling you away from the essence of life. What remains when the ego dissolves is simplicity. You no longer need to prove yourself to anyone, including yourself. You simply exist, and in that existence lies a profound sense of contentment. Consider how the ego craves control. It wants to dictate how others perceive you, how circumstances unfold, and even how the world should operate. But control is an illusion. The more you grasp at it, the more it slips through your fingers. The quiet strategy recognizes this truth and teaches you to let go. Instead of fighting against the current, you learn to flow with it. This does not mean you become passive or fatalistic. It means you accept what is beyond your control while focusing your energy on what you can influence: your thoughts, your actions, your character. Letting go of control is an act of courage. It requires you to trust, not in outcomes, but in your ability to adapt to whatever life brings. The ego resists this trust because it fears uncertainty. It thrives on rigid plans and expectations, which are inevitably shattered by the unpredictability of life. When you release this need for control, you free yourself from constant tension and disappointment. You begin to see that life's twists and turns are not obstacles, but opportunities to grow. This quiet strategy also invites you to examine your attachments. The ego clings tightly to identities, possessions, and relationships, defining itself through these external markers. I am my job, it says, or I'm my success or stand, or even I'm my suffering. But these attachments are fragile. A job can be lost, a success can fade, a relationship can change. When your sense of self is tied to impermanent things, you become vulnerable to their impermanence. The quiet strategy encourages you to loosen these attachments, not by rejecting them, but by recognizing their transient nature. For example, you may love your work and take pride in your accomplishments, but you must also understand that these do not define your worth. You may cherish a relationship, but you cannot control how others feel or act. By embracing this impermanence, you cultivate resilience. You become rooted in something deeper, your values, your integrity, your inner peace, something that cannot be taken away. Another key aspect of this strategy is the practice of self-restraint. The ego often drives us to overindulge, whether in material possessions, status, or even attention. It whispers that more is better, that satisfaction lies just beyond the next achievement or acquisition. But true contentment comes not from excess, but from enough. Learning to recognize when you have enough and being grateful for it is a powerful act of defiance against the ego. It teaches you to find joy in simplicity and to appreciate the abundance already present in your life. This is where discipline becomes essential. The ego thrives on instant gratification, while the quiet strategy values patience and long-term fulfillment. Discipline is not about denying yourself pleasures, but about choosing what truly serves you over what merely satisfies a fleeting desire. It is the ability to say no to distractions, to prioritize what matters, and to remain steadfast in your commitments. Discipline may not always be comfortable, but it leads to a deeper, more enduring sense of satisfaction. The practice of silence itself is a cornerstone of this strategy. Silence is not merely the absence of noise, it is the presence of awareness. It creates space for reflection, for understanding, for connection to the present moment. When you cultivate silence, you learn to listen, not just to others, but to yourself. You begin to hear the subtle voice of your true self beneath the clamor of the ego. This voice is not demanding or critical. It is calm, steady, and wise. It guides you toward what is real and away from the illusions of the ego. Silence also changes the way you engage with others. The ego often dominates conversations, eager to prove a point, win an argument, or gain recognition. But when you approach interactions from a place of humility and curiosity, you create space for genuine connection. You listen not to respond, but to understand. You speak not to impress, but to express truth. This shift disarms the ego and fosters relationships built on mutual respect and authenticity. As you continue on this path, you may notice that your perspective begins to change. Situations that once triggered frustration, anger, or pride now evoke understanding and acceptance. You no longer feel the need to defend your ego because there is nothing to defend. You see others not as competitors or obstacles, but as fellow travelers on their own journeys. This shift is not a loss, but a liberation. You shed the burdens of comparison and judgment, allowing you to move through life with greater ease and compassion. The quiet strategy is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole. It is about recognizing that you are already enough just as you are, and that the ego's incessant demands are distractions from this truth. It is about finding peace in the present moment, joy in simplicity, and strength in humility. It is not a path of grand gestures or dramatic transformations, but a series of small, deliberate choices that lead to profound change. The quiet strategy does not just strip away the ego, it reveals what lies beneath it. It uncovers the essence of who you are, not your titles, your achievements, or your possessions, but your character, your integrity, your ability to love and to grow. And in this revelation, you find a freedom that no external success or validation could ever provide. You find yourself. As you walk further along this path of quiet transformation, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to see the ego for what it truly is, a construct, an illusion, a fragile facade that once seemed essential to your identity. With this realization comes a profound sense of clarity. you begin to perceive life through a lens unclouded by pride, envy, or insecurity. The ego no longer dictates your thoughts, your actions, or your sense of worth. Instead, you become anchored in a deeper sense of self, one that is grounded in peace, purpose, and authenticity. This clarity is not a sudden epiphany, but a gradual unfolding, a slow shedding of layers built over years of conditioning. The ego is cunning. It does not surrender easily. It may retreat for a time, only to resurface in moments of vulnerability or temptation. It may disguise itself as ambition, righteousness, or even humility, tricking you into believing you have transcended it, when in reality, it has taken a new form. This is why vigilance is essential. The practice of self-awareness must become a daily ritual, a continual process of observing, questioning, and refining your thoughts and behaviors. One of the greatest tests of this practice is how you respond to external recognition. Praise and admiration are intoxicating to the ego. They can lure you into seeking validation from others rather than finding it within yourself. When accolades come your way, pause and ask yourself, am I grateful for this recognition, or am I attaching my self-worth to it? Gratitude allows you to accept praise with grace, without letting it inflate your sense of self. It reminds you that your worth is not contingent on external approval, but is inherent in who you are. Equally challenging is the experience of criticism or rejection. The ego despises being wrong, being overlooked, being criticized. It reacts with defensiveness, anger, or despair. But criticism, like failure, is an opportunity for growth if you approach it with humility. Instead of resisting or resenting feedback, embrace it as a chance to learn. Ask yourself, is there truth in this? What can I improve? This openness not only weakens the ego, but also fosters resilience, turning setbacks into stepping stones for personal development. A significant aspect of stripping away the ego is embracing the art of letting go. This includes letting go of grudges, expectations, and the need for control. The ego clings to resentment, feeding off the belief that you have been wronged and deserve retribution, but holding on to anger only poisons your own peace. Forgiveness is not about condoning wrongdoing, but about freeing yourself from the burden of bitterness. It is an act of liberation, a refusal to let the ego keep you trapped in the past. Letting go of expectations is equally liberating. The ego creates rigid standards for how life should be, setting you up for disappointment when reality does not align with its demands. By releasing these expectations, you open yourself to the flow of life as it is, not as the ego insists it must be. This does not mean abandoning your goals or aspirations. It means pursuing them with flexibility and grace, understanding that the journey is often more meaningful than the destination. Another profound element of this quiet strategy is the cultivation of compassion, not only for others, but also for yourself. The ego is harsh and unforgiving, quick to judge and slow to empathize. It holds you to impossible standards, berating you for your mistakes and weaknesses. But true growth comes from kindness, not criticism. When you treat yourself with compassion, you create a space for healing and self-improvement. You acknowledge your flaws without letting them define you, understanding that imperfection is part of the human experience. This compassion naturally extends to others. As you strip away the ego, you begin to see people more clearly, not as rivals, obstacles, or means to an end, but as individuals with their own struggles, fears, and aspirations. You recognize that their actions, even those that seem hurtful or misguided, are often driven by their own battles with ego. This perspective fosters empathy, allowing you to respond with understanding rather than judgment. It transforms your relationships, creating connections based on mutual respect and authenticity. The quiet strategy also encourages you to embrace a sense of wonder and curiosity. The ego thrives on certainty, on the belief that it knows all the answers. But true wisdom comes from acknowledging how much you do not know. When you approach life with curiosity, you open yourself to new perspectives, experiences, and insights. You become a student of the world, constantly learning and growing. This humility does not diminish you. It enriches you, expanding your understanding and deepening your connection to life. As this transformation deepens, you may notice a shift in your priorities. The pursuits that once seemed so important, status, recognition, material wealth, may lose their appeal. Instead, you find yourself drawn to experiences and values that nourish your soul. Meaningful relationships, creative expression, acts of kindness, moments of stillness. You begin to measure success not by external achievements, but by the quality of your inner life. This shift does not mean abandoning ambition or the desire to make an impact. It means redefining what success looks like. It is no longer about being the best or gaining the most, but about living in alignment with your values, contributing to the greater good, and finding fulfillment in the present moment. It is about pursuing excellence for its own sake, not for the approval or applause it might bring. Over time, this quiet strategy transforms not only your relationship with yourself, but also your relationship with the world. You become less reactive, more present, more at peace. The challenges that once seemed insurmountable no longer overwhelm you, because you approach them with a calm and centered mind. The opinions of others no longer control you because you are rooted in your own sense of worth. The endless striving for more gives way to gratitude for what is. This is the ultimate power of the quiet strategy. It does not just strip away the ego, it reveals the essence of who you are. It uncovers a strength that is not loud or aggressive, but steady and unshakable. It allows you to move through life with grace, resilience, and purpose, unburdened by the illusions of the ego. And in this state of clarity and freedom, you discover a truth that was there all along, that you are enough, just as you are. In the end, the journey of stripping away the ego is not about renouncing your individuality or suppressing your ambition. It is about uncovering the deeper, more authentic self beneath the illusions. Ego is loud, demanding, and fragile, while the quiet strategy is steady, disciplined, and unyielding. It does not seek attention or validation. It seeks clarity, purpose, and peace. Through humility, presence, gratitude, and compassion, you begin to see the world as it truly is, not as the ego insists it should be. This transformation is not a quick fix or a single revelation. It is a way of life. It is a series of deliberate choices to step away from the noise, the conflict, and the constant striving for more. It is about choosing to listen instead of speak, to let go instead of cling, to grow instead of remain stagnant. It is about choosing stillness over chaos and authenticity over facade. As you walk this path, you will face challenges. The ego does not relinquish its grip without resistance. There will be moments of doubt, frustration, and even regression. But in these moments, remind yourself of the greater purpose. Every breath taken in awareness, every moment of restraint, every act of humility weakens the ego's hold and strengthens your true self. And what you gain from this process is invaluable. You gain the freedom to live without the weight of constant comparison, without the need to prove yourself, and without the endless hunger for validation. You gain relationships rooted in mutual respect and understanding rather than competition. You gain the ability to face challenges with grace and setbacks with resilience. Most importantly, you gain a deep sense of inner peace, a peace that is unshaken by external circumstances because it is grounded in the core of who you are. This is not a journey of perfection, but of progress. It is not about becoming someone else, but about becoming more of yourself. It is about quieting the noise of the ego so you can hear the truth that has always been there, that you are enough. You always have been. If this message resonates with you, I invite you to take these principles and begin applying them to your own life. Start small. Observe your ego in action. Practice a moment of silence. Offer compassion to yourself or another. These small steps lead to profound change over time. And if you found value in this message, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might benefit from these insights. Let's spread the power of this quiet strategy and help others discover the freedom it brings. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected and continue exploring these timeless principles together. Your journey matters, and I'm here to support you every step of the way. Thank you for being a part of this transformation. Together, let's embrace the power of humility, presence, and peace.